Okay, so just want to say hello to everybody and welcome to our next career spotlight. Before we get started, we just want to acknowledge that myself and Jennifer are coming to you from the traditional territory of the Inkle-Kaplan and Silk people. We also want to just acknowledge our Métis and really all the people in Nickel Valley and their contributions. So I'll pass it off to Jennifer, who's going to introduce our speaker tonight.
I'm really excited to introduce you tonight to Marshal Kraus. He is NVIT's Recruitment, Marketing and Events Officer out of our Vancouver campus, NVIT Vancouver campus. And Marshal has a background. He grew up in Merritt, went to MSS, and he has a Bachelor of Tourism Management from Thompson Rivers University, and he's had kind of an interesting career path, which I'm sure he'll get into, but he's had various internships with Tech Highland Valley Copper, Community Future Sun Country, and Northern Development Initiative Fund. And as I mentioned, he's currently serving as the Recruitment, Marketing, and Events Officer at NVIT's Burnaby campus. So welcome, Marshal.
Sorry.
Wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your current position and sort of a little bit about how your educational background may have led you to that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you again for the invite tonight. So my current position is as the Recruitment, Marketing, and Events Officer at NVIT. Actually, to start, I originally got hired at NVIT as a recruitment and events officer, but eventually took over the title of marketing as time went on, because a lot of the work that I was doing included marketing at NVIT. So that included covering social media, creating posters, just everything from billboards to just the small little ads you might see on social media. When it came to this position, speaking about education, I started off with a Bachelor's of Tourism Management, as mentioned by Jennifer. So, as you know, right now, right now there's not too much tourism that goes on. So I graduated in 2020, right when COVID was starting, and at that time, tourism was not a thing. So I started off my career after university not in tourism, and I still actually am not in a tourism position, but hopefully one day might get back into it. But yeah, when it comes to a business type degree, you can pretty much go anywhere you want with positions. So tourism is much like any other business degree. So that's how I kind of got into the role I am in today at NVIT.
Yeah, so there are a lot of similarities with a business degree. It's just with the tourism management, I guess it focuses a little bit more on the tourism industry. Is that correct?
Yeah, so one way that I like to talk about the difference between a tourism management degree and just a regular business degree is that tourism has a focus on people. So whereas business may have a focus on the numbers or on kind of the actual organization side of things, tourism has a focus on working with people. So no matter pretty much any business you work for or any job you have, you will end up having to work with other people, whether it's coworkers or if you have a customer service type job, you're working with customers and people. So that's one way I like to see the difference is you gain a lot of experience through the tourism side of things with working with people and being able to understand those relationships on how to build connections with people in the business side of organizations.
Yeah, and quite a natural progression for you moving into your current position, because recruitment is such a large piece of what you do. So you really do have to have really good people skills, and you do. Can you tell us a little bit about the duties and responsibilities associated with your current job?
Yeah, so with my job, my title of the position actually kind of speaks for itself. So I have three main priorities when it comes to my position, which is recruitment. So recruitment, marketing, and events. So the first one, recruitment, that revolves around working with prospective students. So attending career fairs, setting up our own career fairs at NVIT, just making those connections with school counselors at various high schools and different organizations. And then, of course, just the typical giving tours on campus or answering phone calls for students that may have questions and providing materials they may need to, materials about NVIT that they may need to help make their decision on their career path. And then the second aspect of that is marketing. So a lot of what recruitment is trying to attract prospective students. So marketing directly relates right into that. When on the marketing side of things, probably the biggest part of that is social media management, as that does have a lot to it. At NVIT, we actually have 6 social media accounts. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. So actually seven social media accounts that I manage. So I tried to have it. One thing that I do for that is I have at least one social media post a day, and for most of those social media platforms. Other things when it comes to marketing that I do on a daily basis include everything from working with different faculty members to create posters for their programs to promote it, creating our annual at a glance or program calendar, as well as working with other organizations such as Patterson Company to set up billboards around British Columbia, or with the BC Transit to set up transit ads along their SkyTrains or buses. I'm sure I don't believe Merritt actually has any on their buses, but in a lot of the other towns around British Columbia, smaller towns, if you are on any of their transits, you will notice that NVIT has a little ad up on the top of their roof there. And then the last one, events. So I plan student events on campus. That ranges from everything from our annual Experience NVIT event, which will be virtual later this month, all the way to cultural events such as drum making workshops, beading workshops, paint nights, trivia nights, anything ranging from things that students are interested in doing on campus. So that is a lot of what I do, just everything from within those 3 aspects of my title.
And I might add that you play a large role in orchestrating the graduation ceremonies for NVIT as well, which is a huge job.
Yes, yeah, graduation and student orientation at the beginning of the year. Those are two other large events that are planned.
Yes, certainly a large portfolio.
Yeah, definitely.
So Marshall, building on that a little bit, could you tell us what kind of your work environment looks like? Meaning, do you work as part of a team or mainly alone? Do you work in an office? Are you traveling? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I do work part of a team. So I am part of the student services team at NVIT. And then as part of the smaller team, it's kind of broken up again into my 3 titles. So there is a recruitment side of team. So I work closely with the recruitment, registration, and admissions officers out of our Merritt campus on the recruitment side of things. And I also work closely with marketing and events with our communications marketing and events officer from our Merritt campus. Position has been vacant for the last year now, so I haven't had someone there to assist with those 2, but typically that they would be assisting as part of those 2 roles. In addition, when it comes to like the work environment, typically I would be traveling quite often. So on the recruitment side of things, traveling to different career fairs all across British Columbia. However, with COVID, everything has been virtual, and I have only worked at NVIT since COVID started. So I actually haven't had the opportunity to travel a lot. So a lot of my work is virtually. So when it comes to events, and recruitment, it is all virtual. But yeah, so those would be the type of work environment that I have with my my various teams at NVIT.
Awesome, thank you. And just again, moving forward, can you describe what a typical day might look like for you, or even a typical work week?
Yeah, so for my position, the type of work I do is a lot of small projects. So not many things I do are things that take up a lot of time. Every day for me is something different. Besides social media, of course, which I deal with on a daily basis. All my tasks every day seem to change up all the time. So one day I could be working strictly on marketing materials, and the next day I'll be having a day-long event with students that I'm setting up for, and then I clean up afterwards. And then the day after that, I may be having a tour with some prospective students on campus, or be giving a virtual tour. So every day for my type of position changes up. So it's never doing the same thing twice. So it kind of keeps things interesting, keeps things fresh and exciting.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of variety in your job. Yeah, nothing too routine.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what you like the most about your work and what the most challenging or difficult part of your job would be?
Yeah. So the what I enjoy most about my position is probably working with people. So every day, one of the things that I have been working on recently a lot is connecting with different communities across BC. So making phone calls to different education counselors at different First Nations bands, or calling different school counselors at different high schools, and just making that connection with them to kind of share information about NVIT and see if there's anything I can do to support them coming to the Experience NVIT event later this year, or just sharing information with them. So that's kind of what I enjoy. I enjoy just meeting all these people, making these connections, and building these relationships with different people from all across British Columbia. Probably one of the hardest things that I have to deal with when it comes to the marketing side of things, I am good with certain softwares, but one of the things that I always have trouble with is Adobe. It's just a very, very in-depth software, and I'm not a very computer techie person, so that type of thing is kind of gets me all the time. But it's always something new to learn on there, which is always fun as well.
Yep, lifelong learning, right? What I know you're pretty early on in your career, but can you tell me what some of your most memorable experiences have been so far since you've been working?
Yeah, I would have to say my most memorable experience would actually be from a previous position of mine. I was working as a business development officer for Community Futures Sun Country. So Community Futures is a government organization, or a sub-government organization, that provides loans to small and medium-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. And while in that position, I actually got a chance to work with a client for the first time by myself. So working with this entrepreneur that had a business idea, and I got to work with him from start to finish. So I got to see the whole process of him applying for a loan, starting up his own business, getting a business name. I got to help him choose out the name for his business. I got to help him fill out applications for setting up the business through the government, and then eventually I got to approve his loan. So I got to see his dream come true, and that was probably one of the most memorable things I've had to do in my work experience, is working with that person from the start, and then being able to see him achieve his goal of starting his own business, which was a restaurant. And it was pretty exciting to see him get to see him open that restaurant. Yeah, that would probably be the most memorable experience I've had so far. That was just before I started this position at NVIT, but no matter what position you have or what type of job you have, there's always memorable moments like that, and it's exciting to be able to work with these people and build connections over time and just see people grow.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that, sort of being that person that can be there to support and help somebody achieve their goals. Yes, it's really a rewarding thing.
So Marshall, interestingly enough, for those that don't know, Marshall was actually a former student of mine. So it's really nice to connect back with you, Marshall. Uh, later, a little bit later in life, anyway. Which kind of brings me to my next question, which is, could you take us through a little bit more in depth around your pathway to getting to the position that you're at now? I know you just mentioned your work with Community Future Sun Country, but could you take us back kind of right to high school? Did you know that you wanted to do tourism management right away, and how did you get from there to here?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to these decisions that I thought were most important in life, I've come to realize that things can change so easily. So starting back in high school, I was really big into science, mathematics, things like that. And I was planning to go to university into engineering, which I actually did start. I attended the first month at UBC in Vancouver in their engineering program before realizing that I did not want to be in engineering anymore. So I was able to switch to a Bachelor of Science, which I thought might be a little more for me at TRU. So I moved to Kamloops and started in a Bachelor of Science. I did that for a full year before realizing after the first year I completed that science also wasn't for me. And then going into my second year university is when I realized that I enjoy working with people. So I tried tourism out, and that just clicked with me. And since I took another 4 years of tourism management to complete my full degree. However, during that time, I did make connections prior to starting tourism. When I was doing my science degree, I made connections with people at Tech Highland Valley Copper. So that's how I got my first internship there. But then as I transitioned into tourism management, I still had those connections, and they enjoyed the work I did there. So I continued to have 3 more internships over the next 4 years at Tech Highland Valley Copper. So even though I was going to school for tourism, I was still working at a copper mine, just located outside Logan Lake. So, so that's kind of where I'm getting at, is nothing really is stagnant and in a straight line. You're kind of, no matter what choices you make, you're all over the place. And then when I finally graduated, I went from working at a mine to working for Community Futures and Northern Development Initiative Trust as a business development officer. I was there for about a year before moving to NVIT, where I am currently. So there's a lot of opportunity for change in life. No matter what choice you make, I changed my degree 2 times before finally finding what fitted me, what worked with me best, and what I enjoyed.
Yeah, Marshall, I really appreciate that answer. And I know for lots of us that our path definitely wasn't what we, saw for ourselves in high school, and that's okay. And speaking of change, what other career options would it be available for someone that might be doing, tourism management or head in that direction?
Yeah. So tourism, as I mentioned, is very similar to a business degree, just that it has a focus on people. So it has a lot of opportunities. So of course, you can stay in the tourism industry and work at resorts, plan events, become a wedding planner. I have people I went to school with that now run hotels down in Vancouver, people that work at resorts in Mexico, people that have become wedding planners or just regular event planners. So you can stay in the tourism side of things, or of course you can kind of go into the business side of things, which is more similar to what I did. I started working for Community Futures, where I was working with businesses to provide loans and funding for them to start up. as well as switching over to marketing here at NVIT, and kind of still sticking with tourism with the event planning a bit, but not too much. But when it comes to the type of education that I have, there's so many opportunities that become available. Just having education just opens up so many doors, no matter what the degree is, because even though I may have the tourism degree, I'm able to get a position like I am in now, which isn't really tourism related, but still opened up that door for me.
So this one's a bit tricky, this question, because I'm trying to decide whether to tailor it to your educational background or to your current job. So I think I'm going to tailor it to your educational background, your Bachelor of Tourism Management. Can you give me an idea of what the future looks like for people with that kind of an educational background? Do you think there'll be a high demand for people with that kind of education skills and experience?
Yeah, definitely. I personally think tourism, right now, of course, with COVID, tourism is pretty low right now. But I think with how things are going, once things start reopening with all the grants that the government's providing, tourism is going to be booming again and start up and become a thriving, growing industry. I know when I was at TRU, most of TRU is open for applications. They don't have a set number of seats for a lot of their programs. However, their tourism program, they had to cap with a certain amount of seats because it was just so popular at the time. And I feel that they still have that requirement now where they only have a certain amount of seats per year. So it's definitely the industry that is growing. And I know a lot of other universities right now are actually starting to create tourism programs rather than just focus on business programs. So I definitely think this type of education, tourism management, or just tourism degrees. I know there are some that kind of focus in on smaller aspects of tourism. There are some that just are bachelor's degree kind of in event planning, or resort management is another big one, or hospitality management, sorry. So those type of degrees definitely are becoming more wide known as popular education pathway that people can go through.
Yeah. So if somebody's considering an education in tourism management, what do you think, what personal attributes, skills, and interests would be a good fit?
Yeah, I think there's two main ones that would be that are probably the most useful attributes to have. Well, if you are interested in going into tourism, one is interpersonal skills. So being able to create those connections with people, because a lot of what tourism is not just travel, but it's also having those relationships with other businesses to be able to grow your own. So for example, if you are an event planner, sometimes you may just be the theoretical side in planning events, but you also need to have those connections with the catering companies. You need to build those connections with the DJs. You need to build those connections with the venues. So having those interpersonal skills to be able to make those relationships with other people and other businesses is definitely a very important attribute to have. And then the second one would most likely be not necessarily time management, but just organizational skills. So tourism, a lot goes on. So when you're working with people, you need to understand that those people also have their own lives. And when trying to work with them, you need to be able to not only organize yourself and organize your own part of your work, but also organize the other people and making sure that they are in line with what you're hoping to plan. So being able to have those organizational skills to not only help plan yourself, but plan others.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that. And probably a little bit of being able to juggle a whole bunch of different tasks at the same time, multitasking. I see you do that quite well.
Yes, definitely.
So if I'm a high school student, I'm listening, to this right now. Is there anything that you can suggest that would maybe help someone prepare, or explore this career path in more detail?
Yeah, so one thing that I didn't do too much in high school that I wish I did. So I really focused in on, of course, I wanted to start off in the sciences. So I really focused in on my academics, but I didn't do too much for extracurriculars. So do volunteering at with different organizations, or doing different hobbies and things like that, building up those connections with people while doing these things. So that's one thing I wish I did more of, because I feel that a lot of the work I do today definitely could have been benefited if I started with those volunteer opportunities early and just started making those connections with people. Definitely would help with a lot of the education side of things, especially because a lot of, when going through your bachelor's degree, especially in tourism, since it is a focus on people, you do get asked a lot on your experience of working with people. And when I focused on my academics side, like maths and sciences, that's what I wanted to go into. So of course that was the priority. But if you are looking into kind of switching things up and going into the business or tourism side of things, definitely working on those people skills is very important to start early on, and just building those relationships with people.
Awesome. And this, I think, next question is probably building right off of that. And is there any just general advice you have for young people as they're, starting to consider possible career choices and making that next step after high school?
Yeah. As I mentioned, volunteering, it may seem like extra work with not much reward, but I see it as definitely having a lot of reward in the long run. So currently right now, I sit on almost every committee at NVIT. I sit on the board of governors. I also sit on the education council, SEM committee. I sit on every committee you can think of. And that's, a lot of it is just volunteering my times. And I see it as not really something that's kind of like a con that you have to, you're losing out time on doing other things, but you're actually using this time, as I've mentioned multiple times already, building connections, making those relationships with people. Because in the long run, later down the line, if you're looking for a job, but you earlier in your life you volunteered at this place, and now they're hiring, you already have that connection with those people, to just send them a message and be like, hey, I saw you're hiring for this position. Would you accept my application? So just relationships with people and having those connections with other people definitely have a lot of rewards. Maybe not short-term rewards, but a lot of long-term rewards.
Yeah, great answer, Marshall. Thank you. And I definitely think that I would second that having those volunteer experiences and having a bit of a story to tell is always really nice coming out of high school. So at this point, we're going to open it up to questions from our audience. So I'll have a look at the chat, and then also if anyone wants to come live and ask their question, please feel free to do so right now. And I actually had one right away, Marshall, that I'll ask you while others are maybe thinking. And I wanted to just get your thoughts on making those changes when you were in post-secondary. How did you feel about that? Like, was it scary or nervous, or was it easy? Like, what did that process look like?
Yeah, definitely. When I was in high school, my biggest fear was making the wrong choice of my education goal. I thought as soon as I made the choice, I was stuck with that until I was done. But as I entered into university, I learned that there is room for error. There is room to be able to make these choices. And yeah, it's a little scary to change things up or start over again. But if you don't enjoy doing what you're doing, especially in school, you don't really want to spend, if you finish that schooling, you don't really want to spend the rest of your life going in that direction if you're not enjoying it. So sometimes making that scary choice of changing directions is honestly the best choice you can make for your education and career path for the rest of your life. And yeah, it may cause a bit of extra work, having to start over or make these changes. Some courses might not be transferable. and you have to make up for them. So there is that little bit of scariness in changing, but in the long run, it's definitely, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's best to find what you enjoy, because that makes all the difference with what you do.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important message that you had to share there, Marshall, because I think all too often, you know, kids come out of high school and they know that they're supposed to progress from one grade to the next year after year, right? And then they think it's going to be the same scenario once they get to post-secondary education. And they're worried about finishing on time, you know, and yet really what it is it's an opportunity to sort of explore what's out there and sort of learn about yourself and what the right path is for you, because what, you know, your mom or dad or your best friend thinks the best path isn't necessarily the best path for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're worried about what you're wanting to do in the future, there's always opportunity for you to change things. You don't have to follow one set path. If you want to spend 7 years working on your degree, you can spend 7 years doing it and just doing it part-time. Or if you want to finish it up quickly, you can do full courses or even extra courses to finish in 3 or 4 years. So there's so many opportunities on how you want to move forward. If you want to take it slow, if you want to quickly progress, there's so many different choices.
An interesting point you should bring up there too about working in between. I'm curious, did your program involve a co-op at all? Was there a co-op option for that?
Yeah, so tourism management did have co-op opportunities. However, at the time I was being offered positions at Highland Valley Copper, so I used that as my co-op opportunities, which didn't really relate too much to what I was going to school for. But yeah, at most universities, co-op is a great opportunity to be able to get that work experience, and then you also get school credits on top of that, which helps you get one step closer to graduating.
Yeah, co-ops are a great opportunity because yeah, you can get your credit, like you said, for your program, but also earn some money and get some work experience under your belt, which you can add to your resume at some point. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely, if co-op is offered with whatever program students take, it's definitely something something to think about and potentially do.
Okay, like I said, we'll leave it open for just a minute, and it looks like I think Yuri has a question. So Yuri, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Yuri, and Marshall, thank you so much for the great speech and interview, and I apologize if there's any background noise. But I have a question which kind of like, I guess, refers more to my experience and might be helpful to prospective students. So, you know, when you grow up, when you grade 11, 12, I personally myself faced with, you know, lots of friends and family members give you advice on career option, depending on the family, kind of like try to push you towards certain directions. So if Marshall, you had that in your life, how did you juggle that, and how did you push yourself through that just to make sure that, you know, other people's opinion does not impact your life positively or negatively?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess for me, the reason I was originally wanting to go into sciences is I was hoping to eventually go to medical school, which was something that my family, ever since they found out that I was actually pretty decent at science and math, they hoped for me to work towards. However, as I mentioned, I did end up going into a full year of sciences in university, but with that time away from family, kind of living on my own, figuring out what is best for me, what I enjoy, that's where I learned that sometimes you just got to make a choice of what's best for you and what makes you happy, and kind of do something for yourself rather than listening to the opinions of others, and just do something on the path that you think's best for you in the long run.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Marshall, for joining us tonight. Very much appreciated, and lots of insights. So we really appreciate your time. We'll say goodnight to everybody at this point, and take care.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Marshall.
Yeah, thank you for the invite for this, and hopefully some students are able to find something that can help them make a decision for their education path in the future.
Yeah, lots of great stuff. So I can't wait for more of our students to see this.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.